Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to talk about when your child has trouble blending sounds. It's a very common difficulty or challenge that kids with reading difficulties have, and it often comes up in terms of how to address that. And I feel like it's important to talk about this today because so often parents or teachers or whomever think that the solution is just to practice, as I've talked about before, to, work on those phonics and, just practice blending more. If they're not good at it, practice blending more. And what I want to talk about today is what's really going on, why it's not just practice, and a huge piece of the puzzle that often does not get addressed. One reason sometimes it's not recognized, and the other reason sometimes when this factor, which is auditory processing, is recognized, often the belief is just there's auditory processing disorder and, there's nothing much that we can do about it and so forth. So basically, one of the secrets to improving your child's ability to blend sounds is to improve their auditory processing abilities. And when you address this, you end up saving a lot of time and energy on the wrong action. And that's so often what I see with the parents that I work with, is that they are trying so hard to help their child and they are doing the wrong action. They are, practicing. If their child's not good at something, then they just keep doing that over and over again. So, and addressing auditory processing disorder is huge. It's actually a big part of my program. So kind of just giving you a little tidbit of that insider secret today. So whether it's ADHD, whether it's, difficulty with reading, difficulty with learning, so often these kids have auditory processing disorder. And obviously there's a lot more going on than just that, but you absolutely need to address that if you want your child to be better at blending sounds. And also if you want them to be better at following instructions, to remember stuff, to be able to focus, all that stuff. So if you haven't seen my previous videos and blogs and so forth on auditory processing, do check that out. So you want to just, not just focus on drilling phonics. You want to improve that. And I'll just give you a quick example of Amanda, a client that I worked with. Her daughter Gwen was 9 years old, had dyslexia, recently been diagnosed with auditory processing disorder, and that's exactly what they were doing. Gwen had shelled out thousands of dollars on tutoring and all these other approaches that just focus really on extra practice and drills. And I don't want to knock all of these approaches. They can be really effective when those, when that brain development is in place, when auditory processing is strong or is improving. But if it's really weak, the progress is going to happen at a snail's pace. So like so many parents and moms I work with, Gwen was told, your child just needs extra practice, or even you'll grow out of it. That obviously did not happen. And as a result, they spent several years where her daughter's self-esteem had just continued to deteriorate because, as I've mentioned before, sometimes tutoring can be more detrimental whenever kids are seeing no progress. It can feel like, see, nothing can help me. And that's where they just throw their hands up in the air and give up, basically. Or, and that's also where a lot of the homework battles start to come in. So strong auditory processing skills are absolutely critical for the ability to blend sounds, for good reading in general, for the ability for good learning. So many kids with learning disabilities and attention issues have poor auditory processing skills. And auditory processing skills are key. They are absolutely key for phonemic awareness, which, if you know anything about dyslexia, it is defined as a phonemic deficit. And practice is not going to fix that. We need to address weak auditory processing. And so, one of the things that will break down when a kid has poor auditory processing and when it's affecting their reading is they're going to have difficulty differentiating sounds. And so that's where we see, they're having a hard time telling the difference between the B sound, ba, and da for, dog, or M and the letter N, so and N, right? They have a hard time distinguishing those sounds or sounding them out and so forth. And of course the list goes on and on and on. So sound discrimination becomes very difficult for them. Segmenting, so meaning dividing a word up into smaller pieces to be able to blend, becomes very difficult when auditory processing is weak. And then as a result, blending those different sounds or ways that they've segmented the word together becomes very challenging. So this will ultimately affect, hi Donna, sorry, I see that you waved and I never said hello, so thanks for popping in. So when there is breakdown with auditory processing and it's affecting reading, that's not only going to affect their ability to blend, that's going to affect their reading comprehension, it's going to affect their spelling, it's going to affect even their vocabulary. A lot of these kids mix up words, say words like it, or they don't say words correctly, right? We know the example of paschetti instead of spaghetti, or Pacific instead of specific. That's all part of connected to phonemic awareness and auditory processing. And of course, it's going to affect their memory. And so what is ultimately needed is a multi-sensory approach that retrains the auditory system and develops it, and it has to be done in a logical and incremental way, in the way that the brain develops and in terms of exactly what the brain needs first before we go on to the next step. And sometimes when I talk to parents and they tell me, we tried this, or we tried, primitive reflex integration, or we tried some brain training, or different therapies that I sometimes use as in my programs. If you've heard of my programs, I actually combine therapies. I use a multi-therapy approach. But those different therapies need to be layered at the correct time. So I'm going to talk more about that later this week in terms of auditory processing and what you can do at home. So tune in for that on Thursday. And for now, if you like this video, please share, and I will post in the comments below, I will post a free starter kit, the Laser Focused Learner, some basic brain exercises that you can start doing with your child at home to help them to better focus and learn. Thanks for watching.